Hello and welcome back to Power Skills with Janna. I'm Janna Jones, your leadership development specialist, coach, and mentor. And I'm so glad you're here with me today as we deep dive into a topic that hits close to home for so many of us: imposter syndrome. Let's be real. Imposter syndrome is that nagging voice whispering, "You're not quite good enough," or "they'll figure out that you don't belong here." It's that knot in your stomach before a big presentation, or the fear that you're just faking it and that someone will finally figure you out, exposing all of your long felt inadequacies. Spoiler alert, you are not alone. Studies show that up to 70% of high achievers experience imposter syndrome at some point. How's that for irony? No, it's not a female thing. Actually, I've worked with so many male executives at the top of their field who have feelings of imposterism because it's a trait of high achievers. It makes sense if you really think about it. Do you think that anyone who's just cruising through life, doing what's within their area of expertise and thriving where they are, is experiencing imposterism? Very unlikely. It is you who's learning, developing, growing, stepping outside of your comfort zone, doing something different, winging it, failing, self-reflecting, and learning along the way. As leaders, it's not just about managing our own self-doubt. It can also be about recognizing in others and helping our teams to navigate theirs too. So today we will unpack the science behind the inner critic, share stories of leaders who have faced it down, and give you practical tools to reframe self-doubt into confidence. Let's turn imposter syndrome from a roadblock into a stepping stone, one intentional choice at a time. If you are loving these episodes, please take the time to hit subscribe wherever you listen. It means the absolute world to me, and sharing it with a colleague also helps us to reach more switched on leaders, much like yourself. All right, let's get started. As always, I want to kick off with the why, because imposter syndrome is that feeling of being a fraud, even when you may be perfectly qualified and capable. It's not just self-doubt, it's that niggling inner voice that tells you that your success is luck rather than skill, and that you'll be found out at some point. Neuroscience explains why this is so sticky, because your brain's amygdala, that alarm system we talked about previously, flags perceived threats like a high stakes meeting as danger, triggering stress and therefore self criticism. Meanwhile, your prefrontal cortex, which handles all the rational thinking, struggles to counter that inner critic. When stress spikes, access to that rational part may be much tougher. So, as leaders, imposter syndrome doesn't just hit you, it can ripple out into your team as well. If you are doubting yourself, you might over control or hesitate to empower others, stifling growth. I often see this with leaders dipping down a lot. It may be a really subconscious undercurrent where the space of their people is where they felt most comfortable and confident. And so they dip down into the work and decisions at the level of their team where they can feel a strong sense of accomplishment. But unfortunately, that hinders their team's growth and progress. And it's often felt as a lack of trust for their team members. But here's the good news: it is manageable. By reframing how you see yourself, you can lead with authenticity and help your team to do the same. I coached a leader who worked incredibly hard and was finally promoted to director. But as soon as she got there, she shared that she was constantly feeling like an imposter. Despite her stellar track record, she really worried that she didn't actually deserve the role. That fear made her self-sabotage her own efforts, micromanaging and regularly dipping down, slowly draining her team's motivation in the process. So when we worked on reframing her self-doubt, she not only regained confidence, but also started to lead, empowering her team to step up more and shine in their space as well. That is the power of overcoming imposter syndrome. It amplifies your leadership so that you can lift everyone around you. Now, In today's complex world with ebbs and flows, like the motivation dips we explored in our last episode, self doubt is also absolutely normal. Manage it wisely, and you can unlock your true potential. Step one, name and normalize imposter syndrome. Now, the first step of overcoming any emotion is to call it out. I find this one a little bit tricky, and honestly, it's why I don't actually tend to call it imposter syndrome at all. Why? Because it's more of a feeling in the moment and it's often fleeting. And the term syndrome tends to have connotations of being something diagnosed, something that feels more insurmountable or trickier to overcome. So while I know it's used to being called imposter syndrome and it's helpful to the title of the podcast so that people can find it if they need to, from here on out, I'm going to refer to it as feelings of imposterism. Now, as I mentioned, with most feelings, labeling it is step one, naming that feeling. I'm experiencing feelings of imposterism. Research by Dan Siegel shows that naming emotions reduces their intensity by engaging your prefrontal cortex instead, that rational thinking part of the brain. Normalize it. Remind yourself that it's very common. Even top leaders feel it. Actually, it's predominantly the high achievers that experience it. As I mentioned, studies show that 70% of professionals, from CEOs to creatives, will doubt their worth and their work at times. Absolutely normal. Reframe it. See those feelings of imposterism as a sign that you are challenging the status quo, you are doing something new, and you are growing in the process. It often hits when you are stretching, like taking on a new role or a new challenge, for example. I worked with a governance manager who felt like a fraud leading a new project that sat across multiple disciplines. By naming his feelings of imposterism and sharing it with a trusted mentor, he realized that his fear just meant that he was doing something new and creating new limits for himself. And that shift led him to leading with confidence instead. Naming it and reframing it removes the barrier and makes it far more manageable. Step two, challenge the inner critic with evidence. Imposterism thrives on distorted thoughts. So instead, it can be incredibly helpful to overcome that inner critic with evidence. Challenge it with facts instead. Perhaps you might collect evidence like listing your wins, big or small. Have you completed a project, mentored a team member, for example, supported successes of others? Perhaps you might like to write it down. Reality check your thoughts. Ask yourself, is this true? If you're thinking, I'm not worthy, counter it with those specific achievements. As you start to do this more and more consistently, you can start to rewire your brain to focus on strengths instead. Neuroscience can be your friend here. Embrace it by counteracting your negative self talk. Perhaps you might like to seek feedback. Ask a trusted colleague or maybe even a mentor. What is it that I do well? Sometimes other people can give us insights and perspectives that can help you to balance your inner critic far more effectively. A client of mine felt like he did not belong in his C-suite role. We created an evidence notebook of his successes, whether that was closing deals, inspiring his team, and never mind years of grafting in his industry. Reading it when he felt particularly on edge helped to shift his focus from doubt that could have so easily led to self-sabotage into capability, giving him back more mental capacity in the process. Don't forget what we talked about in the last episode on motivation as well, because tracking your wins boosts dopamine and confidence. Your inner critic is not the truth. It is just annoyingly and undoubtedly loud at certain times. Challenge it with evidence and it will start to slowly quiet down. Step three, reframe mistakes as growth opportunities. Unfortunately, feelings of imposterism often tie into our fear of failure. But if we're challenging the status quo and doing something different and pushing our limits, of course we can make mistakes or even fail. That's how we innovate and improve. After all, they are intrinsically linked. So we also need to consider how you might reframe mistakes in order to keep growing. Embrace a growth mindset. Like Carol Dweck's research, see your mistakes as effort and learning, not proof that you're a fraud, but proof that you are stepping outside of your comfort zone in order to do and to be more. Reflect on lessons learned. After a setback, ask, what did I learn from this? Or what might I do differently in future? This strengthens neural pathways for resilience. Consider role modeling vulnerability. Perhaps you might share a lesson from a mistake, from what you've learned with your team. That starts to build trust, which is incredibly important in challenging situations, especially like we discussed in adaptive leadership. That trust is absolutely key. A leader that I was working alongside froze during a presentation, and she got so stuck in a loop in that moment that she couldn't pull herself out of it without intervention. Ruminating over that fueled her feelings of imposterism. Instead of hiding it, she shared that lesson with her team. She'd felt unprepared at the time, and she should have or could have spoken up and renegotiated the timing so that she would feel more confident and prepared talking about the figures that she was presenting. The team really respected her honesty, and she in turn invited them to never hesitate to speak up if they were feeling pressure to perform unprepared. They should always let her know, and that they could instead work through it together. It sparked a culture of learning. Mistakes are not the enemy, but hiding them might be, especially if it's helping you to self-sabotage or it's holding us back from growth. Step 4, build a support network. You don't need to deal with your feelings of imposterism alone. Leadership is not an island, but a network. I did an episode recently on your network is your net worth, and support is something that we all need at some point. So find your allies, your wolf pack, connect with mentors or peers who uplift you. Share your doubts and your challenges. I promise that no matter how different their technical field or discipline, they may have seen, felt, or experienced the same or similar. That can help you to normalize it. Cross-pollinate. Seek perspectives from different roles or industries to broaden your insights and your confidence in the process. Give and you shall receive. Support others' confidence. It absolutely reinforces your own in the process. Think of the buzz that you get when you acknowledge and share your gratitude with others. It boosts your own oxytocin by positive connection with others. A marketing leader that I worked with joined a cross-industry peer group. Hearing others' feelings of imposterism really helped her to see that she was not alone at all, and she had plenty of value to offer. Her network became her mirror, reflecting her self-doubt, but ultimately reflecting her strengths in the process as well. That is the key. Step 5, celebrate your authentic self. It may be easier, especially when you're busy, to brush off your past achievements. There are already other things creeping up on your to-do list. There's always something else going on, right? Next thing, move on. But no, do not do yourself that disservice. When you celebrate your successes or strengths, you give yourself more evidence that can help silence that inner critic. Instead of self-deprecation, own your strengths. Acknowledge what makes you unique and individually you. Dopamine from self-recognition fuels confidence and gives you ammunition for that pesky self-doubt. Celebrate the small wins. Like we spoke about in regards to motivation, recognize progress. It could be a great meeting, a tough decision, greater team alignment. Give yourself credit where credit is due. Inspire others. Sharing your own journey with this may help others to overcome their own self-doubt too. Your learnings can ignite the spark for others to achieve their full potential. That is the sort of gift that money cannot buy. One of my clients celebrated her first keynote by journaling what went well and letting go of the rest. It shifted her focus from fraud to inspirational leader. Celebration is not fluff, it's fuel. All right, friends. We know that we don't grow through understanding, but by actively doing new things. So here are 5 actionable practices to overcome feelings of imposterism. As I mentioned, name it. Labeling a feeling like imposterism when it hits, remembering it's just a feeling, so it is fleeting. Name it to remove some of the ambiguousness and take that power back. Create an evidence notebook. If you have persistent negative voice piping up, perhaps you could write down some evidence to combat any recurring messages. From there, you can build on that. For example, you may like to write down 3 small daily wins for the next week. Reframe for growth. After a mistake, instead of focusing on what went wrong, write down the lesson. For example, this part went really well, and next time I would like to focus more on this. Maybe even ask some others to collaborate or share their insights. Build in networking time. Connect with one ally this week. Make sure it's recurring in your schedule if that helps. If you're like me or most leaders that I work with, if it's not scheduled, everything else will take precedence. So make sure it's locked in. Gratitude and acknowledgement are important too. Thank yourself for one strength. Seriously, I am so thankful that I have the ability to articulate what it is that I need to say in a way that's valuable and meaningful for others. What are you thankful for? It's only ick if it's forced, so lean into your authentic self as much as possible here. All right, let's pause for a little self reflection. Grab a pen if it's safe for you to do so, or just hit pause if you need to and think through these. Surface level only gets us shallow results, so dig deep where you can. When did feelings of imposterism last hit you, and what triggered it? What is one win or strength that you're proud of, but have not allowed yourself to own? Who could you empower to overcome their own self-doubt? How will you celebrate your authentic self this week? Self-reflection is, of course, the first step in self-awareness and self-regulation. These are stepping stones to building and growing your emotional intelligence. So your challenge this week, should you choose to accept it, pick one moment where feelings of imposterism have crept in. Write down as many contradictions to that negative voice as you can and note your evidence. Considering both the stuff that you do or have done, but also who you are as a person. Yes, the one that shows up even when it's tough and does it anyway. If you're stuck, perhaps you might ask a colleague or a trusted advisor for their feedback. Yes, we can ask for positive feedback too. And share your commitment to overcoming feelings of imposterism, because shared commitments stick. That is one giant leap towards a healthier, more constructive and positive way of leading. Imagine the capacity that you can take back without all the noise. And what could you do with it? Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me. Feelings of imposterism are not a flaw. They're a sign that you're challenging your previous limits and growing. By focusing instead on your strengths, you can amplify your leadership. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear about it. Please do not hesitate to connect via LinkedIn or Instagram at Power Skills Development, or head to www.powerskillsdevelopment.com if you're seeking any more tools or insights. If you haven't, you can also subscribe to Power Pause. That is my weekly leadership nudge via email that includes these power practices and challenges to support your growth. If there's another leader in your network who would value similar insights, please don't hesitate to share and share alike. Until next time, stay curious, stay intentional, and recharge your own confidence wisely. Only then can you empower others powerfully, one step at a time. Enjoy the rest of your week.